Hello, everybody. Andy Jacob here with the DotCom Magazine Entrepreneur Spotlight Series. Settle back in your chair, everybody. I have an amazing show. I've been waiting for this show for a number of weeks because we're going to be talking about my favorite subject, money, budgeting, finances, and what you can do to change your entire life with this application called Qube Money. I mean, when we saw it, our entire team went crazy over it. We've been talking about it for a number of weeks. I've been able to invite Mr. Shane Walker. He's one of the founders and executive vice presidents of Qube Money. Wait till you hear what they put together on a platform. I mean, they're changing the digital world. So many people are adopting this application. Yesterday, they had a record day. I mean, it's incredible what's happening. Shane, welcome to the DotCom Magazine Entrepreneur Spotlight Series today.
Awesome, Andy. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be here with you.
All right. We have so many questions. Let's get right to it. Pull the lens back to 30,000 feet and tell our viewers what it's all about at Qube Money, and then we're going to get into it.
Absolutely. So, Andy, we're a digital bank that literally connects banking and budgeting in real time. And so, literally you spend and bank from your budget, which absolutely changes everything. And to be honest, cash envelope budgeting is the most successful budgeting strategy ever created. It changes behavior, but who carries cash around anymore? I don't, And so it's really hard. It's just a hard system to implement in today's world. So we digitized it and made it easy. And so literally that's what we've done.
I love it. Back in the day, when I was a young man, my father taught me a little bit about cash envelope budgeting. He wanted me to learn how to budget and how to make sure that things were ticked and tied and my money sort of balanced out and I knew what I was spending and I knew what was coming in. But what you've done at Qube Money, which is resonating all over the country and all over the world, is that you brought this cash envelope budgeting system really into the digital world. How did it get started? Because it's such a great idea.
Both my partner and I, the founders, we were in the financial health industry and fell in love with helping people change behavior. But Andy, over and over and over, we would spend all this time with them. We'd fall in love with these people. We'd see change, and then they would fall back into the same habits. And for a long time, we're like, what's wrong with us? Why can't we really make a permanent impact? But what we realized is it wasn't us. It was the system that our world, the financial system our world exists in, that's the problem. I mean, 3 out of 4 adults claim financial stress is the number one cause of stress in their lives. And the funny thing about money is there's 2 parts of money. There's the fact I'm $20,000 in credit card debt, let's say, but then there's the feeling that I'm drowning in debt. Or there's the fact that I have $300 for Christmas, but then there's the feeling that I'm a loser parent. And those feelings create all sorts of social issues. I mean, we're talking one of the leading causes of divorce, one of the leading causes of suicide, one of the leading causes of child abuse. And we can go on. And it is because of the stress that's caused because of the feelings that come with money. And we want to solve that. We want to help you transform that, and we know we can. So,
yeah, I love it, Shane. Of course, Qube automatically organizes a person's finances by keeping track really of exactly is being spent, what you spend, when you spend, where you spend it. You allow people to sort of organize their money into these things called cubes and then spend directly from these cubes. And really what that does, and I love this so much, Shane, what you and your team have developed, is it really creates a purpose behind every dollar that's spent. I love it so much. It's really great. Now, one thing that comes to mind, everybody's talking about, and I know one thing you really take into consideration with your team, and by the way, your team is a world-class team. I mean, you go through the roster, everybody on there is a seasoned veteran in their respective spaces. You take protection very, very seriously. So let's talk about that, Shane, a little bit of fraud protection in the Qube program.
Absolutely. So the interesting thing, Andy, is the very nature of our system was built upon this idea that the debit card, the Qube debit card, by design, has a zero balance. Like there's no money connected to that card until you open your bank app, look at what's there, and tap a dollar amount in one of those categories, one of your cubes, we call them. And that immediately in real time authorizes that money on the card to spend, and you're actually spending from the budget category that you just selected. So money feels real. But that concept of what I just talked about, if someone gets your card or your number, they get a piece of plastic or a number because they have to access your phone, go through the authentications on that phone, access the app and with the password before they can get your money. And that's not going to happen. So it creates this whole new level of safety and security. And we were actually listening to one of the executives at the top 20 world banks. And he was talking about fraud and how with COVID-19 and people across the world sitting in their desks, just jamming it, programming, fraud is escalating like crazy. In fact, 5% of the world GDP is as a result of fraud today. And in the next 10 years, it's expected to triple, quadruple. So there's got to be a change in the way we deal with money because of that. And so real-time user authorization creates that safety and security. So that's on one side. But then you have the data protection, your database protection, the private, information and things like that. And Andy, not to brag, but we are setting records for a fintech. The average fintech loses $200,000 to $300,000 a year in fraud. Last year, ours was 5% of that. And our bank is so like, this is incredible. So anyways, it's something we take very, very serious. Your personal information is very important to us, just like my personal information is very important to me. And it's one of our core, values as a company. So anyways, I don't know that answers that, but yeah, it's serious.
Yeah, no, what you've done is remarkable. Of course, you're known for the security. Plus, you solved the problem by disassociating the card from the actual money, like you mentioned. It's so smart. It's such a great way to solve a big problem. Of course, you mentioned poor financial health. I mean, Shane, poor financial health is really crushing the world. And, there's a lot of budgeting apps out there and saving tools, but none of them really address the root problem, which is spending. And you've been able to sort of solve that giant problem in one neat technology platform that's super safe and super secure for your clientele and for your people coming to the app and using the platform. So I wanted to congratulate you on that so much. That's remarkable. Now, let's talk about your team, because Shane, when I look at the roster, you've got people that have great backgrounds, great experience. You've been able to bring them all together. How important, Shane, has it been for your company at Qube Money to bring around the best of the best in their respective fields so you could put this great team together?
Well, it's everything. Who you have on the bus determines the progress of the bus. And we're leading a cutting edge technology, like seriously front edge, where our processor and our bank and Visa, we're doing things that they've never done with anyone else, never been done before. And they're having to create new technologies to be able to facilitate what we're doing. And that requires top talent. It requires thinkers that look beyond what has been, much far beyond. And Andy, it's really exciting to see. Today, the way we handle bills, you just love our bill pay system and how it works and how much clarity and awareness that it creates, yet it's still automated, safe, the ability to turn off bills in real time from your bank and you don't have to go to the vendor. Things like that really change the way that you feel about money. And so anyways, but some really neat things that are coming forward. That requires a phenomenal team. And our CEO has a phenomenal exit strategy already. Our exit experience already, extremely successful leader. Our chief product officer was a user, came to us, volunteered because he just loved what we were doing, but also very, very good at his space and extremely organized, extremely structured. And then our CTO specializes in database engineering, and he is excellent at the fraud and so forth, and protecting and like making sure that database is solid. So anyways, really excited about the team. You're right. They're some of the best in the world, and we're grateful for them.
I love it so much. And of course, this word disruptive gets thrown around so much these days. It's almost old fashioned, but when we really think about it, you're really committed to disrupting the industry. And what you're doing is you're changing behavior. What you're really doing is you're making the behavior of your clientele change because of how convenient you've made breaking the paycheck to paycheck cycle. In other words, you've really created something that people can use seamlessly. So how important was that when you were developing sort of the system to make it just this easy, simple, seamless program for the people coming on the platform?
Well, when we live in a world that is like obsessed with easier and faster, I mean, we're like, you look at the cars, they go from 0 to 60 in less than 3 seconds. It's amazing. We live in an amazing age. And so when you add a little friction to the spending process, which is essential, because easier and faster isn't better with spending. It actually creates more out of whack it creates financial disaster. This is really what it does. And so we had to create that friction to cause that choice before the spend. But then we also had to make so that you could adapt it to your situation. So certain cubes you could have strict and others not so strict. So you can be you. And so all of this thought process, so people would actually use it in today's world, had to be considered. And so anyways, it's been a unique experience as we've created that user experience so that it's what people really want. And we've gotten there, Andy, and it's so exciting to see the transformation happening in people's lives. Like I was just talking to a mother, and she said, for the first time ever, I have enough money to budget for next month. Instead of having to pay off my credit card what I spent last month, I'm ahead. And it's just so cool. And another lady, she was like, I am investing more than I've ever invested in my life because I am controlling my spend. So anyways, some really neat experiences that just it makes you love what you do. It makes it all worth it. So
yeah, I love it, Shane. I love it so much. When I think about it now, after you mentioned that, it makes sense. And this word mindful comes to mind for me. I mean,
absolutely.
What you're really doing is you're, for lack of a better term, forcing the clientele to spend mindfully and stay within the budget. And what I think about is you're sort of the anti-paycheck to paycheck company. Prior to Qube, everybody's paycheck to paycheck, and you're scrambling on Fridays because you don't have enough. But with Qube Money, you're the anti-paycheck company, where at the end of the paycheck on Friday, they have enough because they've been spending mindfully. I love it so much. Now, Shane, let's talk about it a little bit. When you wake up in the morning, it must be a great feeling for you and your team knowing that you're powerfully impacting, so many people, because like you said, finances cause so many problems. What's that like, getting up in the morning, knowing you're going to work in a technology company, but also you have this sort of vision to change people's lives for the powerful and for the positive?
It's this. I mean, honestly, Andy, I get up and I have a family. I'm happily married. So this isn't my whole life, but it is a phenomenal part of my life. And I can't say every day is phenomenal, because when you're in a startup, there are a lot of pressures and stresses and things like that. But for the most part, man, one of the things I try to do every day is read a page of customer testimonials. And man, I just want to dance afterwards. I'm like, because it is exciting to see the impact that it's having on people's lives. So it really is exciting. The fun thing about this is it does change behavior. It does help people save $500 a month without them feeling it, so they have money to do for what really matters to them. But the most amazing thing is how it changes the way they feel about money. Like seriously, it gives them a sense of confidence. They feel in control. They feel happy for the first time. Like money's not this thing that's like weighing them down. They feel happy. They're like, money's doing what I always wanted to do for me. And that is so cool. It's just so cool. So anyway.
Yeah, I love it so much. Of course, you mentioned Ryan and Jay, of course, the co-founders as well. And, the team is really spectacular. Now, when we look at Silicon Valley, we look at, Texas, we look at, what's going on in Austin or back east in Boston, New York, Chicago. The first thing everybody's looking at is the team. It's no longer just the technology, it's the team. So when you hire someone to join Qube, what's the thing you're looking for? Are you looking for experience? Are you looking for passion? Are you looking for commitment to the customer? Are you looking for a great CV? I know you're actively pursuing great talent. What's the thing, Shane, that is most important to Qube Money when you bring somebody on and hire someone to join the team?
Actually, it takes all those things, to be honest. They have to be passionate about what we're doing. They have to be passionate about the customer and what's happening in their lives, but they also have to have an expertise, and they've got to be get it done people. They have to, talk is great, but give me results. And so one of the interesting things we do is we do working interviews with every top level person that we bring on, where we give them a project that's a 2 to 4 week project, and they engage with us as a team, and we watch them work. And if they don't cut it, then it was just a subcontractor project, and we say, hey, thanks so much for the value you've brought. We appreciate you. I don't think it's going to work out. But those that come in and they engage with us, we see leadership skills, we see get it done qualities, we see the passion, and we see the expertise in their area of work. Then those are the people we bring on, and we've hired everyone that way, and it's worked out amazing, Andy. It's created some phenomenal synergies.
Yeah, I love it. And for the entrepreneurs watching the show, rewind what Shane just said. I mean, he almost gave you a little Harvard MBA on hiring practices. I mean, that's a great idea to bring somebody in, watch the way they work, put them in a position to be able to watch the way in which they transact, the way in which they communicate, the way in which they get things done. And then after you put them through sort of the process, then you offer the real job to them instead of just a contractor job. I mean, that's a great way to go, Shane. I love that so much. I mean, just that little insight right there that you gave to the people watching the show, I think that's going to be so valuable. Now, when we think about entrepreneurship, you're in this mode, things are going well, and people are watching the show. We have younger entrepreneurs, Shane, watching the show. Maybe they're in startup mode. Maybe they're hitting a pothole. Maybe they're hitting a pothole in the road. Maybe they're hitting a roadblock, maybe a wall they can't get through. I'm hoping you might be able to share some insight based on your own personal experience and your experience at Qube, of course, to let the younger entrepreneurs know what they need to do to get through a pothole, what they need to do to keep on pushing through and come out the other end, having said to themselves, I'm glad I went through that little challenge I just had.
Yeah, I'm going through potholes too. So just so you know, that's part of an entrepreneurial journey. It's there's challenges which are opportunities to grow and become better. And that's ultimately what they are. And those won't ever stop as long as you're growing. And the truth is you're either growing or you're not. And if you're not, you're rotting, right? So the process of growth is change, it's improvement, it's challenging. And you have to fall in love with that process. To be frank, you got to be a little nuts to be an entrepreneur. You got to be a lot nuts, because it's the hardest thing, but it's the most rewarding thing you'll ever do in your life. And we are changing the world, like you and I together. Entrepreneurs change and make things better for the society around. It is what's going to change the world for those that come after us. And so, anyways, a couple of things that really help me as I'm coming through, as I face potholes, as I face challenges. And the first thing is making sure my perspective is right. Okay, so work isn't everything. It's important that you're taking care of your health, because I know a lot of people that give their health to make a lot of money, and then they spend all their money to get their health back because they didn't have that balance, as well as mental mental health with meditation. If prayer is your thing, prayer, making sure you're reading and continually to grow. But so you really, I love, I can't think of it, who that is, Stephen Covey.
Yes.
He talks about sharpening the saw, and there's mental, spiritual, physical, and social. Just make sure you have that balanced. I think that that's critical. And then the second thing is make sure you're connected to your mission, and you really are connected to your why, because that why will push you forward. Because through really difficult challenges, everything about you wants to quit. But there's too many people. There's your employees. There's your customers. If you have investors, there's your investors. You cannot quit. And so that why needs to burn deep, and you need to understand like the greater good that you're creating to give you that motivation to push through. Because the truth is, there's light on the other side. You just got to keep going. And when it's most difficult is when the biggest breakthrough is coming. And remembering that, it's really, really powerful. And then the third thing is you got to connect your team to that why, and come and this counseling together, masterminding together, and working together, being completely transparent about what the situation, why it's so difficult, and how together you can break through that. And that creates loyalty, it creates commitment, and it creates this synergistic push forward that you can't do on your own. Great things require a team. So those are the three things that I would say, is make sure you keep yourself balanced, make sure you understand your why and who you're working with, and that motivation is there, and then bring your team together and counsel together, and those solutions that come through will help you push through. So
Shane, that's awesome. This time I'll call it a Stanford MBA instead of a Harvard MBA you just gave. I love it so much. Shane, I know you've only cut out a certain amount of time. I mean, Qube Money, you're not going to cover off the ball. So many people are now coming on the platform. And I wanted to thank you for really slicing this time out today. But before we go, I have one last question, because, so many of the high-powered leaders we have on the show, we talk about corporate culture. And of course, corporate culture always starts at the top, and it sort of works its way through the company, weaves its way into a perfect sort of fabric, a perfect sort of blanket of people understanding what they need to do, when they need to do it, how they need to do it, and the reason why they need to do it, like you just mentioned, the why. How important is the corporate culture at Qube Money to make sure that you're able to deliver this promise to all the clients now coming on the platform?
It's everything. I mean, that's your brand. And I'm telling you, one of the most core things I think that culture needs is authenticity and integrity, honesty. Like, it's okay if you're facing challenges. It is. Everyone does. And when you're honest with your investors, honest with your employees, you're honest with your users on those challenges that you're facing, it creates trust. You know what I mean? And when they trust your brand, they will go miles. They'll go, you know what I mean? They'll go the distance with you, whichever that is, whether it's a customer or an employee or an investor. And so anyways, that is what it's all about. And I think that core, if it's goodness, it's wanting to really help people. And when you have that love for the society around you is so powerful. It's more powerful than fear. It's more powerful than all those other emotions. So anyways, culture is huge. I mean, Andy, it's huge.
I love it. And of course, we're going to bring you back on the show with your other co-founders. I think it would be very fascinating to further explore that and get into that and dive into that. But listen, what you're doing at Qube Money is remarkable. The full suite mobile banking solution, the digital budgeting app that really, does what I learned as a young boy from my father, but now you've taken it digital and everybody's loving it. It's resonating. It's the anti sort of week to week, pay program. I love it so much. I called it that. So pardon me for my naivety and calling it something so simple, because I know it's so intricate what you've built, but I think it's resonating for everybody that at the end of the pay period, you're going to have money left over because you're using this cash envelope budgeting program at Qube Money. So Shane, I want to thank you so much for coming on the .com Magazine Entrepreneur Spotlight Series. Again, we're going to have you back. And thanks so much for spending some time with us today.
Andy, thank you. It's been an honor to be with you.